Yeah. So you can put your camera back on too.
Yeah. You can come
Good.
back.
Yes, come back. So that was just a little overview of the NINE Sapiens. And so there's going to be a conversation. Claudia is the co-author of the book NINE Sapiens, and so I'll be asking some questions. And feel free to ask your questions as well. Just type in the chat. There are actually more of us here. We'll introduce to the rest of the team. So somebody will be capturing your questions, and we'll address them. But meanwhile, just wanted to start a conversation. First about my personal experience. I got trained in Enneagram last year in the summer, and so Muriel McCaskill was my teacher, and it was just fascinating. It's such a great experience, and I believe Moira is somewhere here. So it's an honor to have you here, Moira. And then shortly after, actually, I got introduced to NINE Sapiens. It was just kind of serendipitous. It's like a very new, different look at nine types. And it was so fascinating. I just really got mesmerized with it. And so thanks to Claudia and her husband Hugo, they both wrote the book and published it. It was just published in Spanish. I just got introduced to this fascinating, absolutely model. And so the purpose of this webinar is to share the information and and have a conversation. Yeah. So, Claudia, first, it's like, of course, you are the specialist, you're the expert here. And Claudia, by the way, she's a psychologist, and you've been teaching Enneagram for
Yeah.
a long time?
Long time, yeah, over 25 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what did this whole idea of NINE Sapiens come from?
Well, it all started 3 years ago when I was starting my PhD in the UK. And I wanted to, in a way, give back to the Enneagram world, which is because the Enneagram has never been a tool that is so validated within the academic community. So I wanted to do research with the Enneagram and concretely in the leadership field.
Yeah.
So I came across a challenge, which was selling this tool to the academic world. So I started doing research, and I came across a whole world of new discoveries in the realm of neurobiology and genetics of personality. And I'm talking about the last 15 years that have been revolutionary in terms of the discoveries that they've been doing. So, that's where the idea was born, because I started finding patterns and connecting the dots between, these traits that were consistently coming up in research, in biology, in realms that had nothing to do with the Enneagram, that could be connected with the basic 9 Enneagram types.
Yeah.
So that's where it was born. It has been a 3-year-long journey, and here we're sitting. By the way, the book in English is about to come out as well. So
Cool.
stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Claudia, there might be a couple of people here who are not actually familiar with the Enneagram.
Mhm.
Can you just give a quick summary what it is?
Yeah. Well, the Enneagram is a personality model that describes 9 types.
Uh-huh.
And these types are described in terms of their traits, their motivations, and well, in our book also in terms of their biological basis and their evolutionary contribution, if you wish, evolutionary sense. So we'll go into that deeper.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I honestly, it's like ever since I got trained in Enneagram, I started using it with my clients. It actually helps to identify the motivation and where people come from, and it's like really useful.
Yes.
And
it can go really deep.
Yeah, well, particularly with biology and evolution, that's where I was really like fascinated by that. Yes, and what's the role of all those 3 elements, like biology, evolution, and the Enneagram? What's the role in the model?
Well, when we built the model, as I said, what we did was identify in the Enneagram we boiled down, you could say, each of the types into what could be like the core traits. And we went on to biology and genetics to find what could be the biological basis for each of those traits. And this was an iterative process, because what we found in biology in a way informed what our vision, our original vision, and in some ways it tweaked our original vision of what could be the core trait that explains, all the realm of traits that are described for each of these types.
Yeah.
So the biology, in a way, for us, came to describe the core, the basis, like the seed of the type. And then the third bucket, because these are like 3 buckets that we put together, like the Enneagram, right, biology and genetics. And the third bucket was a field called evolutionary psychology that seeks to explain personality as an adaptive mechanism, a mechanism to explain, and it has an evolutionary purpose.
Right.
So each of these core traits could be explained because it has a distinct contribution, not only for the survival of the individual, but also a contribution to our species as a whole, because we survive also as a collective.
Well, that's where I totally fell in love with this model. Just, like understanding that each type is essential, and not just for survival, but the contribution of each type is essential. Well, someone who loves to tell stories, it's kind of got validated.
That was my contribution. Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. Well, also what's so fascinating, that the biology is different, right, for different types?
Absolutely, yes. For each, I'm not going to go into each of them because it could be long, but and by the way, in our model, we explain for each of the types what could be in terms of, finally combinations of neurotransmitters located in different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I could go perhaps into one type as an example.
That'd be interesting, that'd be great.
Yeah, for example, well, for those who are familiar with the Enneagram, and by the way, perhaps we could put up, just for a sec, what can we put up the slide with the 9 types? So you have like a reference for those of you who are not familiar with the Enneagram. Perhaps you can have like a reference of what we're looking at here, because we were talking about 9 types. And for those of you who are familiar with the Enneagram, you will find that we have put different names. We have assigned names to the different types of the Enneagram that in a way suggest or in a way are like, yeah, are suggesting what could be the distinct, unique contribution of each of these types in evolutionary terms. So, for example, if we go to the wizard, which is the name we have given to type 4, what we have found is that the core trait of the wizard could be a special sensitivity to a realm of emotions connected to pain. And here, I'm not talking about physical pain or not physical pain only.
Yeah.
I'm talking about mainly emotional pain and a family of emotions that are linked to that.
Yeah.
You know, the emotion of feeling lack, nostalgia, melancholy, you know, something that I don't have understood, you know, painful emotions as a whole. So there's a hypersensitivity that seems to be lodged and born from a biological tendency that is, again, a hypersensitivity in a little place in our brain that's called the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex. So if you look that up, actually, and in our book, we cite tons of research papers that connect a hypersensitivity to, in this place of the brain, to, you know, a greater empathy, a greater capacity to read other people's emotions, and a greater connectedness to our own emotions. Yeah. So that's the biology, and that's a core trait. But if you take it in evolutionary terms, such a trait for us only became adaptive after what was called the cognitive revolution that happened 60,000 years ago, in which the brain of Homo sapiens was able to talk about things that were not concretely real. And I'm talking here about creating symbols, creating realities that are beyond, you know, the physical reality. And, you know, there is archaeological evidence of that. For example, there's this statuette of a man with the head of a lion that is over 30,000 years old, that was found in a cave in Holstein-Stadel in the south of Germany. Yeah. And that, well, there were other statuettes very similar to that, only smaller, that were found kilometers away. And in a way, the person who created that was creating a symbol that probably, you know, created a feeling of brotherhood between us, that we're all part of this tribe of the sons or the children of the lion. So we had there probably the first wizards, the first musicians, the first artists that did the cave paintings, or the storytellers that you came home after hunting all day and you sit by the fire and listen to stories that transported you to a different realm, that created meaning and emotion beyond what was concrete there. Wow.
I also read about this type from your book that actually the value of storytelling was to sort of like deliver the wisdom of like the previous generation, because there was no writing and stuff like that. So that people would not, sapiens would not learn from the experience again, the same thing that was learned before.
Exactly. And the traditions and probably first religions were born that way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, the founder of Peugeot was inspired to create the logo of
really?
that man with that lion head. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wow. So yes, and let's see. Speaking about the Enneagram, so for me, because it was so fresh, I just learned Enneagram in a sort of like a classical way, and then you introduced me to your model. So I wonder, it's like, is it different from, are you departing from Enneagram, or is it just a different perspective of Enneagram?
Well, let me tell you in what way it's similar to the Enneagram. It's the 9 types, and
Okay.
they're all recognizable. The
Mhm.
same 9 types, we were inspired by the Enneagram, and
Yeah.
we respected most of all the core traits that are identifiable in these 9 types. But when we went to biology, in a way, biology shifted our perspective of the 9 types. And I would say the main difference is that we think that what is core of each of the 9 types is what is core. And we have separated from what is secondary, because we believe, and by the way, we don't believe in those endless descriptions of type after, of trait after trait after trait into the description of one type. Because I think a lot of what is described right now as part of the type is actually cultural, part of education, and therefore can change from individual to individual. It's finally unique. So our perspective goes more, the emphasis is go on to the core of each type. And also, we do not believe on the arrows and, because what we have seen from biology is that types, we can have many types, by the way. We believe from biology that we just have one main type, but we have many secondary types, potentially. But in a random mixture. We don't believe that it's like fixated by arrows or anything. No, we believe that the mixture is more random.
So we're more flexible in a way.
It's more flexible in a way, yes. Yes.
Because I'm thinking about biology. Like people say, it's like, I'm just not wired that way.
Exactly.
Or they say exactly the opposite. It's like, I'm just wired this way.
Exactly. Well, the whole thing here is to go and check out how we're wired. Yes.
Here comes your motto.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's like to find out how we're wired.
Well, remember, you guys, that you can ask your own questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's like you can turn on your cameras, so it would be nice to see faces too, and that's great. Yeah. So yes, the question. So here's a question that came from somebody. So how is it this approach different from other approaches to personality? Yeah.
Okay, I can compare it to 2 approaches that come to my mind. Okay, but if I don't know who sent that question, if you're thinking about any approach in particular, you can speak up and tell me. For example, let me start with the MBTI. There are some authors that have drawn a parallel between the actual types of the Enneagram and the MBTI subtypes. What we believe is that, the Enneagram and 9 Sapiens as a typology has fuzzy borders and has a prototypic description of each of the types. Instead, the MBTI has like 2 poles, a bipolar distribution. You're either introvert or extrovert, like no in-betweens. And to tell you the truth, honestly, if you look at biology does not work that way. It's been proven from psychology and from biology that all traits are distributed normally, not bipolarly. So that is something.
Like more of a continuum?
Exactly, and that most people are like average on most traits. So those people that are like, super high in those traits are like a minority of people, and that probably sets the difference from one type to the other. Say, for example, type 4 is super high in sensitivity, but most people are, just average. That is captured by the Enneagram. It's not really captured by the MBTI. This is just one idea, one quick idea, not to bore the rest of you. The other big typology that we could compare it with is the Big 5, or the 5-factor theory, which is perhaps the most established model within the academic community. And here, again, we could draw a parallel. We could say, the Enneagram type, actually that I'm working on that on my PhD, you could say, each of the Enneagram types can display some of the combinations of the different traits of the five-factor theory. But part of the essence of the five-factor theory is that, the combinations of traits are random. Whereas on the Enneagram, it's not random because there is a common root. It's like, think of the 9 types as a tree. You have a root, which is biological. Then you have a trunk, which is the core trait, and then you have the branches. All the branches in this typology are connected to this branch, are not random. There is a logic, there is a dynamic that is all connected.
Wow. Yeah, and so another question just came. So, in what way does this model contribute in people development?
Well, I would say that this model contributes in 2 ways. Well, first of all, if you put like the 2 big tools that this model directs to in terms of people development are perhaps not new, because we arrive at the conclusion that 2 things are important for self-development. One is self-awareness, and the second is practice. What is new, what is a unique contribution about this model perhaps, is the what. You have to be self-aware of what in particular. Where should you focus your attention, preferentially on your core traits? The core traits is what determines, your deepest emotions, your deepest drives. Perhaps those traits are more difficult for you to change or to move in a way. And by the way, the purpose is not to change them. The purpose is to become aware of them.
That's
Is
interesting.
to go deeper into that awareness and to be able to actually observe them. So that is, meditation, calm, quietness of mind, etc. So that's where you should focus your self-awareness. And practice, on the other hand, in order to make it more useful for you, you should identify, those types that are farthest from you, those traits that are more alien to you, more difficult to you, and identify perhaps 2, 3 key behaviors that could be your power behaviors, and that here you can resource to neuroplasticity,
Right.
and practice them. Have make a plan, a developmental plan. With that, the help of a coach is perhaps super useful, because it's not always easy to find out how you can develop a plan, if a developmental plan. So you identify those behaviors, and then you go and practice, fake it till you make it, and all those stuff that you can find out there that are part of the principles of neuroplasticity, and how can you bring not only new behaviors to your toolbox, but also new experiences, new emotional experiences that stretch your, area of comfort.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting out of it, Clyde, actually is very exciting. First of all, it's like, don't go against your nature.
Well, exactly.
Know yourself and don't try to be someone else.
Exactly,
right?
and appreciate it.
And appreciate it, yeah,
Yes.
I love that. And also expand the range of behaviors, which will expand the range of life experiences.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Actually, you mentioned the coaches. Wanted to ask you, it's like, so coaches could be their final recipients of this model, right?
Absolutely.
And who else?
Well, anyone who is interested in their own development, or other people, or helping other people's development, because I think it is a very helpful, intuitive map into the landscape, the overall landscape of personality. Because, understanding ourselves can be pretty complex. We are complex people, individuals. So when you want to, look and know thyself,
Yeah.
the motto, know thyself.
Myself.
And you try to actually look into yourself. Where do you focus your attention? What is primary? What is secondary? It's a chaos of thoughts, of, emotions.
Sure.
So how can you understand? How can you make sense
Yeah.
of this chaos and actually get into what is core
Right.
and separate, what's the refrain here? The tree from the chaff? Something like that?
Separate the grain from the chaff.
The grain from, sorry, yeah.
And how to create from chaos.
Exactly, and how to create. We drew a lot
Right.
from the theory of chaos, by the way. Theory of chaos
Wow.
and systemic theory in general.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was a question also, Claudia. It's like, so if I am a coach or trainer, how is this model useful or relevant to me?
Well, in a way, I think I explained it. But let me rephrase to see if I can answer that better. First of all, I think it's a very useful map. It's a very useful map. There are other maps, and maps sometimes, as long as they are a faithful description of a reality. You have geological maps, you have political maps. There are so many kinds of maps out there. So, the different personality models can all be true at the same time. My take on this, and the reason why I like the model, this, conjunction between the Enneagram and biology that we've created here, is that on one hand, you have this very powerful, deep, intuitive way of looking into yourself, which is something, by the way, that the Big Five does not give you. Because the Big Five is very, very descriptive. But as it does not have a systemic view of personality, it's it's useless in order to make sense of why you feel what you feel. So it doesn't provide you with a sense of continuity, of understanding, the reasons why you do what you do. So in a way, it's both ways. It's both descriptive, but also helps you go in depth. And I would say, particularly for a coach, I think it's helpful to tell what is primary, and you have to accept and embrace and know how to manage, from what is secondary, that you can just, jump out of that. You learn that. You learn that you can unlearn it and learn new, ways of framing things, of new ideas, get out there and have new experiences, so you can tell one from the other as a coach. And in that way, you can, help your coachees along that way better, from my point of view.
What comes up for me is like oftentimes clients, say it's like, I just want to be authentic self. I just want to be myself. It's like, but it's really hard to kind of get it to this, like, when you are authentic self. So who are you, right? So, and that kind of gives that access point.
Exactly. And there are so many layers to that. Right? And you can draw there from, all the theories of adult development or vertical development, as somehow, sometimes it's called, So to be authentic, sometimes you can say, in the name of authenticity, you can be like very, arrogant or impulsive.
Right.
So it depends on your level of self-awareness and the level of empathy you have with other people.
Right.
And it also depends on your level of overall perspective from where you are seeing life, is that you can be like really authentic. Right,
and also probably like awareness of your impact when you are, being yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it evolved in interaction with other human beings, right?
Yes. Yeah. Something that this model gave me as well is, a deeper respect and compassion for people who are very unlike myself. That when I was, probably less mature and less, self-aware, I was internally, perhaps not outside, but internally, I tended to clash with those people. And I felt want to be more, understanding.
Right.
Because I can see where they come from.
And we can appreciate them more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Claudia, there's like 3 more questions here. And let's see.
The last one.
The last one? Oh, wow.
Yes,
Yes.
the last one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Leon,
you still have-
can you give
Oh,
an
can
example?
an example? That's like, that was a question for me. Yes, an example how I include it in my coaching. Yes. Yeah, not to disclose too much, too many details, but actually, I ask oftentimes my clients from the very beginning. I ask them to actually get the type, right? It's like get the assessment, the type, and also apply this model. It's like, okay, so on the classical Enneagram, they're this, and then it's like from this model, I understand better. It's like the motivation of my client, and they might be actually in conflict with it, but it's, they because of their conditioning, and this is where it becomes interesting, because their conditioning, sometime in their life, somebody made them feel wrong about who they are and how they behave, how they're motivated. Once they get to the core of it, it's like, well, literally, it's like, well, turns out that you're wired this way. There's nothing wrong, it's like with you. It's like it starts kind of unfolding. The journey starts unfolding for them, and the clients start embracing who they truly are, and that leads to more compassion, self-compassion, and self-love. So that's how I apply it in my coaching. I think, Caroline, you asked that question, right? Yeah, I see you nodding your head. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So let's see. There other questions here. So Claudia mentioned that you wanted to contribute to the organizational world.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what makes this version of the Enneagram more organization friendly? That's from Emma.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that question.
Yeah.
I love that question. Yeah. Well, I've had already, because the model is quite new, but I've already had experiences introducing it in organizations. And I would say there's 2 ingredients that make the model more easy to digest for people within organizations. One is explaining the biological basis, because it's science, and you can provide all the citations. You can provide the citation directly to the scientific papers, which are peer reviewed, and all the trail. So it provides hard evidence on the existence of something that explains these tendencies. And again, they're tendencies because we are not, again, describing the types in super detail, but in the innermost basic emotional tendencies and drives. So that's one thing. The other thing is that when we provide names that are, that sound really prehistoric, and in a way far away and devoid of a social desirability in terms of organizations, because there are some models out there of the Enneagram that say that because you put these names are like tags, right?
Right.
That they're supposed to be mnemotechnics, yeah, but they're like tags. And so, for example, some people say the type 8 is the leader, as if the other types could not be leaders. And actually, they all can be leaders, and they can be great leaders. And there are examples out there of all the types being, either very good leaders or very poor leaders, all the types. So if you call it, if you call it the warrior, the wizard, the hunter, those names are devoid of a connotation of what is better, what is worse, and you come to, so that is a distinct contribution of this way of putting it, the science and the neutral name, the neutrality of the names. But also, when we speak about the evolutionary contributions, when you dive into the world of the evolutionary contributions of each type, you find out that they're still valid. If you say that the type 1 finally was preserved to our day, because that is finally, all the types conceptually were born from mutations.
Yeah.
And mutations, could become extinct. But if mutations are adaptive, well, they perpetuate. So our belief, and perhaps I didn't explain that before, but our belief is that all these types are here because they all have brought to the table a distinct contribution that have made them adaptive. So when a person inside an organization learns more about distinct contribution of the type 1 that came to the world, or probably became adapted because it brought order to the social world, and that made it possible to collaborate in bigger groups, which, by the way, is the reason why Homo sapiens has been so successful. It's not our big brains, guys, it's our personality.
That's true. Actually, there were other types that had actually larger brain and...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
they didn't survive.
Exactly. The reason why we are here, and chimpanzees are on the zoo and whales are in the ocean, but we're here, comfortably sitting, is that we as a species were able to organize in greater social groups, collaborate together and for more ambitious goals. So inside an organization, it's very easy to come with this idea of the distinct contribution that has its origin and can be explained in terms of evolutionary purpose, but it's very easy to draw the parallel to teams, organizations, etc.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense because and also it hacks some assumptions about leaders and leadership.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
It does. Yes.
Yeah, and from it's like my own training in leadership, the core belief is that everybody is a leader.
Well, that's what we believe as well.
Yeah.
That everybody can be a leader.
Right.
But it takes work.
Right. Yeah.
It takes work. It takes inner work because even if for you it's spontaneous and you look, and it's inwired in you that to look for power, to look for control, you have the drive for power. Even in that situation, you might be still a poor leader.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
So the things that so that's another thing that this model can bring to the table for a coach is a way of understanding, well, what could be your strengths and what could be, your opportunities for development, to use our usual language, your opportunities for development that are most of the time attached to that same pool of strengths that you have.
Yeah, from Andrew, that's right. Yeah, what is the best way to discover our Enneagram type? Yeah, absolutely. There are many offers on the internet.
Yes.
Is there a standardized assessment?
Yeah. Well, I will give you my point of view. Nothing replaces the honest introvision once you have learned about the model. So what I would say is that go in depth into the model, find probably somebody who can teach you, or you can read our book as well, but go in depth understanding the model. And yes, you can take an assessment, but don't believe absolutely the results of the assessment, because the assessments are just only one other input that you can take into account. Because many things come into the assessment. First of all, they're not perfect. And second, we might answer them from what we think we know about ourselves. But once we come into contact with what's deeper in ourselves, we might discover many things. And I'm just remembering, Leonid, because I remember what happened to you when you came across, a video. And so what was it like to discover your type?
I know, it's like, as I remember that, so we're sitting next to each other, and it's like, I'm getting hot right now even. It's like that experience was so powerful. I always believed that I was type 7. And once I started, it's like diving deeper into this model, all of a sudden we were going over type 4, and I just lost it. I got emotional. It's like it touched something. It's like I was a whole week I was processing it, it's like, what was that experience? It was so deep. And it's like, I think it just saw my soul, you know, it's like for the first time.
Yeah.
It was like so, touched me so deeply.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. And so gave me a little bit more clues about the types. I think type 7 was my sort of like adaptive.
Yes.
When I moved to a different country, and it was like my assumption was, it was like that would be my best survival, you know, to assume that type.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it's like when I had an encounter with type 4,
Yeah.
it was quite special experience. Yeah.
And let me elaborate on that, because that was a beautiful moment for me as well, to witness that. And let me elaborate on that, because that was a very intuitive experience.
Mm-hmm.
You were just watching, you know, images and music.
Right. Totally.
And we were trying to describe, to have an approach to each of the types through this. You know, it's the energy, images and music, in order to give you, not with words, but the flavor, to transmit to you the flavor of each of the types. So sometimes, you know, you can be misled by so many words. And you can be convinced that you know your type, because you know, sometimes we believe it's in the behaviors, but the type, we have to look for the type deeper. It's not in what we do, but it's in why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Because two different types can have very similar behaviors, if not the same. But when we look inside, the reasons why we're doing are different. So what I would say is use as many methods as you can.
Right.
Find help, read, watch audio visuals, and also you can take some tests, which, by the way, if you're interested, you can reach us by email and we can send you some data on valid tests that you could take.
Yeah. That was amazing. It's like I was feeling high like the whole week, and then it's like I felt like my true nature got validated, and it was like beautiful. But a lot, it's still unfolding. Here's another question. So you mentioned vertical development, which for me is about shifts in consciousness. Are the levels in the Enneagram the same thing as shifts in consciousness?
Let me see. Yeah, let me see if I understand the question. When you're talking about the levels of the Enneagram, we do not visualize that like the levels on the Enneagram as something like fixed. But yes, you know, both ways of looking at individual development are very connected, because we believe that when you go deeper into yourself, you actually can finally, and doing an honest effort to be really honest with yourself and practicing, you know, these behaviors that are out of your zone of comfort, and you develop a sense of humility, a sense of empathy, a sense of perspective, a more realistic perception of things that are happening outside yourself, with other people, inside yourself as well. So for us, that is the road to vertical development. So they go hand in hand with one another. And of course, if you evolve in your vertical development, which is this greater sense of perception, empathy, compassion, etc., you are more connected to, you could say, the virtues of your type as well. Because inside the same type, you can have like the highest expression of the type or the absolute lowest. And it's the same type. It's the same basic trunk, but it can be very, very much evolved or very underdeveloped.
Oh, wow. So is that similar to what they say, it's like a kind of healthy, unhealthy?
Yes, yeah. We prefer to look at it as developed or undeveloped, but yes, it's the same thing. And it's the same thing actually, because you know, actually, they're connected to psychopathology as well. In their underdevelopedness. Yes. Right. They're connected to that.
Okay. So there's another question. So do you? That's from Frederick. Do you think that a model could be developed that based on the levels / combinations of certain hormones and neurotransmitters we could determine the phenotype and instinctual stacking. Of course, this would be unfortunate, as it might take away the powerful path of self-discovery, but would it theoretically be possible?
Oh, hi, Frederick. Well, I will go in depth, but let me say what I think. There is a whole road ahead because, you know, what we write in our book are hypotheses. They're not proven truths. They are hypotheses that are based on solid science. What we would love is our book to create a whole movement of, going out there and actually proving, because we do make hypotheses. For example, type 2, if there are any type 2s listening, yeah, our hypothesis evolves around, how we process oxytocin and vasopressin, two hormones, when they're used as neurotransmitters in the brain. So yes, it could be very technical, but actually it has yet to be proven the other way around. We have to go out there and team up, neurobiologists, geneticists, and psychologists in order to prove whether people who have a higher sensitivity to oxytocin in certain areas of the brain tend to be type 2s. So yes, theoretically that could happen. I think we are miles away from that, because neuroscience in the last 15 years has advanced, has more than duplicated what it knew before the year 2000. So the last 15 years have been revolutionary, especially in genetics, because of functional neuroimaging, the genome-wide assessment of human beings. So that has been huge. Who knows what lies ahead?
Wow. Who knows? Here's another question. So can we determine type through biology?
Well, I was elaborating on that. I was saying we are still not there. I think we could get there. At least when we're talking, remember, about our basic core type. Because we believe that we are a combination of types. We have a basic type, which we think is more rooted in biology, but we think that our secondary types, we believe, imagine this could be like the solar system. So our core type could be like the sun in our inner realm. And we have planets that are closer to the sun, which are like very strong in us, and sometimes we can even mistake them for our basic core type because we feel them so present, so close to our core. And some planets that are very far away. Okay. And those planets, I think they're more cultural, learned from our parents, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I can recognize something on the Pluto.
Exactly. So that will never be found out through biology. Yeah, that is learned.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's see. I'm conscious of the time. We have 6 minutes. Yeah. So feel free to ask. We probably have time for a couple more questions. One or two. And if you'd like to ask questions, just it's like to speak. So feel free to do that. Just unmute yourself.
Well, I just wanted to say, Claudia, I appreciate what you mentioned earlier, that these assessments, these typing, don't necessarily define who we are, right? I think, for me, I take it as an indicator, right? And pointing us to how does this represent, how is this a mirroring back to us? Because when I did my assessment, I had 3 exicos numbered. So I was a 2, 7, and 9, and so it's like, okay, 9 minus 7 equals 2, or whatever that was. But, in reading some of them, just like Luna's experience was like, okay, oh yeah, that speaks to me. Oh yeah, that speaks to me too. And like you were saying, some of them are more at our core, some are like we're more than just one type, I find, to a certain percentage. And for me, like, I don't let these assessments define me, but how can they inform me of my behavior, my thoughts, my thought process, you know, and learning more about others. I appreciated that you did that, where we get a sense of more compassion and knowing, you know, once we know where we come from, or patterns or behavior or conditioning, I get a sense that we can have and hold more compassion with others, to where they come, where they're, you know, with their own, the whole aspect of our humanity. So
Totally agree and resonate what you're saying. And I think that is exactly the road to go, because you can, you know, these assessments inform you, but you can only see what you resonate with. That is something deeper. And also, as you say, we're not just that. We're also what we decide to make of ourselves. So that is much more unique, deeper, and important, finally, in defining who we are. Yes.
No, thank
Anyone
you.
else? So, see, come up here.
Oh, we come over there.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I'm holding this book here, and it's in
Most
Spanish.
welcome.
Really fantastic. All right. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Applause, everybody.
Yay.
Thank you.